It's ball talk. It's ball talk, baby. 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 Baby.
Hello and welcome to the Ball Talk podcast. It is currently 4:20 p.m. on Monday, March 15th, Eastern Standard Time and all that. I'm your host, John Sock, and as always, I'm joined by my main man, Chaz Jurgens. And today, we're lucky to be joined by special guest, Nate Saunders. Nate, how are you doing, my man?
Hey, how's it going, guys? Thanks for having me.
It's a pleasure, man. So Nate is a professional referee for the game that we all love, basketball. And we figured this could be a lot of fun. We're about to walk into March Madness. We're about to walk into the NBA playoffs. And we know that everyone's going to be yelling about the refs. So, hey, we thought this was perfect.
Let's bring a ref in. Let's go. Let's get it done.
Yeah.
Cool.
I wanted to kick it off to talk to you what it's been like over the past year. I know you've been reffing for a little while now, but just since COVID and everything has happened, traveling for refereeing, I'm sure, and just games in general has been a lot more complicated. Just how has that process been for you of trying to find work and keeping busy and just refereeing the game of basketball now? Do you guys do masks on all the time, or?
Well, listen, I can speak from a Canadian perspective. Like, there's no basketball going on, and there hasn't been since it basically kicked in right after the USports championships last year. Everything's been shut down. We did have the Canadian Elite Basketball League take place last summer. And again, the protocols were all in place there. It was amazingly run. We had our masks, not officiating with the mask, but we're using the electronic whistle, which is something we've never really done before. So they didn't really want us blowing into a whistle, again, spreading whatever out into the air. So we were using electronic whistles. The league was run without a hitch, So despite the COVID protocols, we were able to get that league done and played. But outside of that, there has been no basketball. Again, I'm on the Ontario side of things right now. No basketball here. There are talks of it maybe starting up for this summer. I know the CEBL is planning to be up and running again, tentatively. So, again, we're just looking for any basketball we can get from a referee standpoint. I can only imagine the players as well.
Yeah.
I can speak internationally too. They have been playing games and they've kind of formed bubbles. Unfortunately, Canadian referees have had a hard time trying to go again with all these travel protocols in and having to quarantine. Canadian referees have kind of gotten the short end of the stick with COVID now lately. So hasn't been a lot of representation from Canadians internationally, basketball wise. But again, the Olympics are coming up, and we'll wait and see. Fingers crossed, we can get that. We can get officials there.
For sure. It's something that I've always thought about for referees, because usually you try to get guys from different countries or to diversify your group, especially in international tournaments. So it's always nowadays you don't want too many guys from the home nation when you have a game, especially for competitive teams. We had another episode where someone had said that in one of the USports quarterfinals or semifinals, they had a referee whose nephew was the starting point guard of the team that he was reffing in like a semifinal of a Canadian championship. So it's definitely important to be able to get those international referees. Speaking on how you became a referee and how long you've been doing this, I know I've known you for a little while now, since we were back in high school, and just tell me what you did to become a referee, how it started for you, and where you have taken it from where it started.
I started in 2004. At the time I was in high school, and literally just one day, gym teacher said, "Hey, there's a game after school. There's a shortage of referees. Can you referee this basketball game?" And I said, not wanting to turn down an easy coin, I said, "Sure thing. I don't know much about refereeing, but I'll give it a shot."
Wait, how did you do?
Oh, you know what? To this day, I still think back at that. It was the most catastrophic game probably ever played in the history of the world. I just, again, like, it's just some of the things that help me realize where we've come from and, where we can get, Again, following that day, I did attend an official referee session where I was coached and mentored, and then did my first year. I started in Laval and was basically, mentored along and just refereed a lot of games. This is what I tell young officials: just see a lot of games, keep watching a lot of basketball. And again, you got to know your rules inside out, because that's part of our job. And so, it's taken me, again, started locally in Laval and transitioned to Montreal, where there were more games, more competitive play. Refereed everything I can get my hands on under the sun there. Youth leagues, senior men's leagues, provincial championships. Came 2012, and I got the chance to certify for my international license, which is basically it's a one-shot deal, right? And I was thankfully so well prepared by the people around me, I got my certification in 2012. It happened in Montreal. And then since then, I've just been on the international scene and have been very grateful for it. Work tournaments in South Korea, all over the Americas, South America, Argentina. It's just been one great ride, and one ride I never thought I would do. I came from a playing perspective, right? Love to play basketball. Knew I wasn't going to make the NBA, so I figured, hey, let me just give this a shot. Picked up a whistle one day, and here I am. What is it? Almost can't even do the math here, but 15, 17 years later, and it's been one heck of a ride, and I'm looking forward to whatever's down the line too.
No, it's a great journey. I know I started officiating a little bit more like baseball and hockey when I was younger, and I knew I wasn't going to keep playing either of those sports, so I figured I'd get on the other side of it and try to make a little money as well. And it is a lot of fun, especially I started at the youth level, and it's great, but I never had the passion like you did to keep going and keep pushing to the international stage. What do you think are some of the most important?
Man, it's not too late.
It definitely isn't. You know what I'm saying? Even for basketball, it could always get there.
For sure.
What do you think would be what the most important qualities for good referees, for young referees at every level, if you're starting at high school or by the time you get to college, university, and even the pros?
Definitely, you just have to keep learning, keep adjusting. It is what you make of it, right? You can, if you want, just go out there and, stick to one level, what you're comfortable with, go in and out, ref your game and leave. But if you do want to aspire to more, you're going to have to put that time in, keep learning, learn from your peers. I've met some of my best friends in life through officiating basketball. And again, it's just so constructive. We talk about plays. We call each other while we're watching games, talking about plays. And again, we just love the game, and we just want to get the calls right. At the end of the day, we just want to get those calls right. We all know we're never going to ref a perfect game, but we're still out there, and we're it's the love of the game at the end of the day. For young referees, just get out there, work hard, take the criticisms from all over. Make your own, we kind of say, make your own pizza with it. Develop yourself into what you want to become as a referee. And sky's the limit.
Do you ever walk out of a game and go, yeah, I killed that game? I was on it.
It's kind of we're still we got that competitive inside of us too, right? As referees, I walk out that game, and sometimes I'll be doing that. Yeah, I got that call, right? You know what I mean? It's a good feeling. And likewise, on the other side of the coin, when we kick a call, I don't know what the player perception really is, but man, sometimes I go 2 and 3 days and that call is still on my mind. Some days I can't even sleep because I'm that call is eating me up right now. You know what I mean? So, it's tough, right? Because it's split-second decisions. The game is so quick, especially at the NBA level. I know we'll probably get into some NBA talk pretty shortly, but that game, let me tell you guys, the game is so fast, and it's not really on TV. It's kind of, again, we get the advantage of replays on TV, but in real time, that game is so quick, and those officials on the floor making those decisions are really the cream of the crop, because it's one heck of a performance they're doing out there.
We actually have an episode coming out. Well, it'll come out before this interview, but we're only going to be filming it after the interview because timing is weird on this podcast. But one of the things that I'm going to advocate for is we need to cut the refs a lot more slack with this replay. It's hard to call a game in 100% speed, especially at the NBA level, especially at even like top levels in Canada, in Europe, and all these levels. You get some like athletic monsters. People weren't built to move like that, and these guys are doing stuff that 100 years ago people thought would never be possible. Like, and refs just have to look at it, dissect it in a matter of seconds.
100%. And it's different where, you know, basketball officiating is different from that of hockey is a really good example. Football, I'm not really sure of the comparisons, but again, hockey, you know, the referee actually has a second or two. Oh, do I need to make this call? And then can put their hand up, you know, for the infraction. Whereas in basketball, you know, something happens and we're literally like, we're programmed to like, are we hearing a whistle? Or are we not hearing a whistle? And that basically determines if the call is being made or not. Another thing is, I know in football, again, you can retract you can take back a penalty, right? Like if you don't want to go ahead with it type thing. Basketball, once the whistle's blown, it's blown.
Yeah. There's no going back.
There's no going back. You're taking it to the table, right? And reporting it. So, yeah, it's, again, I'm not going to be pushing here to be cutting refs the slack, but again, it's unique to say the least, basketball officiating.
I've never thought of that perspective on it before. That's actually really interesting. I also like, I mean, I was watching, what was it, Miami, Orlando last night, and a ref blew a whistle like 2-3 seconds late, and they were getting chastised for it. And I had never like sat down and realized, like any other sport, like you can get away with a late whistle. Not really basketball, because basketball is the only sport that just the whistle blows, it's dead. Yeah,
it's really one of its kind. And again, like it could be something that maybe can change in the future. Again, our goal is always to get the highest accuracy of calls, right? And so is that something that we could see change down the line? Who knows? Again, but the speed of the game, and again, I know the FIBA concept is they like the pace. They love the pace. So who knows? Who knows what they have in mind?
I'm thinking about it because for me, whenever I was officiating for baseball and things like that, that was one of the things they always told us was, you know, like you make your call, but take your time, make sure that you're set, you're comfortable with what you're saying and what you're doing so that the players and the coaches, they can see that you know what you're doing and you're confident with your calls. And I feel like basketball, I know I'm guilty of it and I know John's guilty of it too as players. It's like as soon as that whistle's blown, if I was the primary defender, I'm going to turn around and look at you right away like, what was that? Because I know it can't be on me. And I think basketball is one of those unique things where refs just have to look at it, and I think we definitely should let a lot more time elapse. You blow your whistle, walk to the table, make the call, like give the guy some time. He's doing his job just like everybody else is, and let him go about it without start berating them as soon as the whistle gets blown.
I just want to say that was a direct quote from Chaz that I've heard at least 8 times. At least. I have heard it in my sleep. I have heard it in my dreams.
Well said.
So, Nate, you've been doing this for over 15 years now. For one, really impressive, by the way. I refed basketball for about 2 weeks, and I quit. I quit for a reason. I liked volleyball. Volleyball was easy.
Awesome.
Have you ever been starstruck when reffing a game that someone was on the other side, someone was on the floor, and you're like, oh my god, that's so and so, and you've just been like starstruck?
You know, I try really hard. Really hard. Again, like get out there. I just want to be objective. I just want to get the calls right. I will say that I've fallen prey to just being starstruck. I mean, it was in Laval when Duke came down to play.
Oh, you were at that game?
I was fortunate enough to work that game. Zion and Rowan Barrett were there. And of course, Coach K is the first one I've seen. Actually, it was the first play up the floor. And Coach K starts going off on me. I'm like, and then it hit me. Coach K is chewing into me right now. I think I've made it in life. You know what I mean?
I like that.
It's just one of those things. it's one of those things. It's like, that's Coach K. And anyway, so again, going past that, and yeah, from a playing perspective too, sometimes you just can't help it. Like Zion just went up for a dunk, and I remember from my position officiating, I remember just seeing his eyes literally at rim level. At the size of the guy, right? Like 6'9", 260 or whatever he is. And you just can't help it sometimes. Again, the athleticism of it, of the game, you just can't help being starstruck by just the talent of these athletes. And that's why, you know, like when you get the chance to go and see an NBA game live, it really puts things into perspective. You know, the speed, the talent. I just remember not that I ever reffed him, but having seen LeBron play in person, it was just, you know, just a whole new appreciation seeing these guys work in real time. So, yeah, from a refereeing perspective, I try not to be starstruck, but yeah, I will say guilty of.
We admire the honesty.
That Duke game was incredibly officiated, if I do say so myself.
Oh, well, Chaz.
It was the most well-officiated 40-point blowout I've ever seen.
Oh, man. Good times.
No, that was a great game. A little bit more towards the NBA now. There is a lot of controversy in the past few years, and especially these seasons, around technical fouls in the NBA. Do you think techs are starting to be given out too softly, too quickly? What's just your general view on a technical foul, or what goes through your head when you assess a technical foul to a player?
Okay, big question there. Just because we'll start on the NBA front. So I don't know if you guys have refereed a senior men's game, but not only is it senior men's play, where typically there's a lot of you know, chit chat. Now it's, you know, because these guys are just so talented, and they, you know, it's the NBA game. There's a lot of talk going on. I've never reffed at that level, but again, there is so much going on. Lot of talk, lot of egos. These are multi-millionaires playing the game at the highest level. And again, they'll get frustrated like any other person in any other game will get frustrated. Am I to say that the technical fouls are coming out too quick? Are they not? Are they too lenient? It's hard to say. I can say that the NBA referees do have a very strict guideline as to what qualifies as a technical foul. So there are certain things you just can't say. There are certain, especially in the arena setting, and with, you know, potential children in the sideline areas, you say certain things, you're going to be hit with a technical foul. Because again, the game is, whether it's FIBA or NBA, there's a certain decorum that they have to maintain. Like the game is, there's certain, you know, codes of just basic etiquette of game that need to be respected. So you know, profanity is always going to be addressed. You just can't have that. One thing that I see in the NBA a lot, which will differ from how it's addressed, I would say, from the FIBA side of things, is the constant the constant talking, right? We see it in the NBA, like literally play after play after play. It's nonstop. The NBA referees have a long leash for that. And again, their mechanics are set up differently to address that. So I don't know if the general public's aware, but the NBA referees, once they call a foul, will generally move to the coaching side to be able to provide that explanation, to be able to enable that dialogue. Where it's different in the FIBA game, where the emphasis isn't really to explain your call. It's more the call was made. We're going to keep playing. The referee actually moves to the opposite side of the floor as to not get into any form of conversation or dialogue, right? So again, they're handled two different ways. The NBA side of things, you know, when players do start to wave their hands in the air, wave offs, those are things that will be deemed technical fouls. And again, that's in their protocols. So again, it's hard to say. I don't envy the NBA refs, because they go, like, just being chirp to, and again, it's not just any chirping. It's Draymond in this year, and then you're getting spoken to by whoever else and the other. You know what I mean? Like it's a lot to deal with. I think they do a great job. I know recently in the last 2 weeks there was the Devin Booker situation, and there was also
Kyle Lowry got one last night.
Did he? I see. I missed that one. I'll wait to see what the talk is on that. But again, like I think the league in the past has addressed it. They've gone to like zero tolerance before, and other times in other past seasons we've kind of seen like a longer leash. It varies. It varies. I think the league will be addressing something coming up shortly about it. Just because it is been in the news or been in talk quite recently. So we'll see where the league goes with, again, either reframing that criteria or how they want to go about it.
And then for you with FIBA and for college level, university level, what does go through your mind when you give out technicals, or what can prompt technicals for you at that level? Because I know it's always hard to kick a player out or give players grief for things like that, because you want to see the game be played at the highest level, of course. So just what is it that constitutes a technical foul for you, and what do you let guys get away with that they maybe shouldn't?
So again, like, on the FIBA side, I think we have our we have our kind of standard, decorum or etiquette. Same thing for USport levels. Same thing for the junior levels. Like we just have certain things. Again, profanity is always going to be addressed. And then at the end of the day, it's it's just respect, and we understand people and players they get frustrated. Coaches get frustrated. It's part of it. There's just certain ways that you have to manifest it. I've seen coaches get down on the ground and start, flailing around and rolling around on the floor. Like, where is that ever tolerable? That will be a technical foul 10 times out of 10, right? And again, it's just because, part of it's just kind of holding that etiquette line. Like, if I let the coach do that, we basically say what we permit, we promote. Right. So if I let him roll around on the ground, the other coach can go around and do that. Do I really want two people rolling around on the ground? And then it's the same thing for the following game. So again, we're trying to just hold a line. People have to remember that it's zero personal. It's a technical foul is zero personal. The game just has etiquette, and we're just trying to maintain those etiquette lines when officiating. So it'll vary. Some leagues will have more strict. I've seen some senior leagues with more strict tolerance for yapping or talking to officials, and others it's just kind of like figure it out on your own. You make that decision of what's a technical and what's not. But at the end of the day, referees need to remember it's not personal, and it should never get personal. It's just maintaining respect and decorum for technical fouls.
For sure. No, and it's something that's hugely important, especially for the NBA and for other leagues, FIBA. You try to grow the game, and you're representing for the company, the organization, the association. So you don't want fans or people involved to come away with the bad perception of what the league actually is or what the game tries to promote. So that is definitely a great point about how referees need to make sure to not only protect players and coaches with their calls, but also just the league itself and the fans about what can be permitted to actually be shown for this and representative of them.
Yeah,
I do like that.
And that's a great point. The NBA is aware, and so is FIBA, that again everyone's watching those two platforms, right? And so whatever happens there will eventually trickle down into the lower levels. And so again, it is super important, and I've kind of seen it too, like just even from our youth level here in Canada, kids will see stuff they see in the NBA and think that it's the same thing, and try and address me the same way that they do, that Draymond did. And I mean, which I don't take offense to it. It's just, again, it's not the same thing. These are two totally different leagues. They two totally different standards of it. But yeah, at the end of the day, it's just decorum. Let's keep the game respectful. There's an etiquette to it. Yeah. It's a beautiful game. Let's keep it beautiful.
What do you think is one of the most misunderstood things about refereeing at a pro or a high level in basketball? Like, what do you hear people complain about referees, and they just don't understand? Like, they just don't know what it's like to actually be there in the stripes with the whistle and making the calls.
One of the things that jumps out to me is that, and again, I'm not, John. You don't. This might come back to something you were mentioning before, but sometimes players may think that a referee may be picking on them. They might feel targeted in a sense, but in truth, and again, like the game is so quick. We don't literally have time to analyze, oh, this player is doing this. And literally, if we see the infraction and it constitutes a foul, like we're just going to blow the whistle, regardless of who it is. Or, the concept that players think they're being picked on or the referee's just out to get them. It's just not realistic. The game's just so quick. For me to say, oh yeah, that's number 26 again, and then to try and build it just doesn't. You know what I mean? So just players just need to be understanding that we're just out there to get the call right. And we're not right. We're not right all the time. We are trying to be. There's no targeting of players or anything like that. Other misconceptions. I don't know. Is there, from a player standpoint, is there anything else that nothing else comes to mind?
This might not be a misconception, but now I'm interested. You're talking about the picking on players thing, and how you don't notice who the infraction was on until you're like taking the second to process after. And so one thing that's talked about often is, oh, you can't give him his 5th foul on that play. You can't give him his 6th foul on that play.
Right.
And sometimes you do see like, oh, and they didn't get their 5th foul on that play, especially especially in the NBA with superstars. It was Nikola Jokic in the playoffs last year who got away with a 10 foul game because
I do remember that game.
How hard is that to keep track of? And is it something that you usually do, or is that just something that we only see in the NBA because it's the NBA and they're told if you disqualify the guy you're not gonna
work so and so. It's a again, we try and be as aware of everything that's going on as possible. At the speed of the game, we do want to make sure that a player's 5th foul is one that we're not going to be like, oh, was that a 50-50? Again, we just want to make sure that's the right call. If it's a 5th, it's a 5th, right? Like at the end of the day, and again, that awareness factor, I can say, is developed over time as a referee. Like, being a younger ref when I was coming up, trying to keep track of who had how many fouls, and it was overwhelming. It was just daunting, and only, with more experience, now you're able to, okay, so-and-so player has so-and-so this many fouls. Okay, let's just make sure that their next foul is one that cannot be argued. Like it's a foul, right? And it has to be called, right? Because again, we're here to just call what's a foul and what's not, regardless of who has what. So, and the NBA is, it's hard to say, man. These guys, again, like, they understand that people are there to see the star players, but the same concept applies. Like if it's the 5th personal, or sorry, in the NBA the 6th. If it's the 6th, it should be the 6th. And again, that Nikola Jokic situation, it's unfortunate, right? Because that puts the whole thing into doubt, into question. Like, or are they really trying to keep him around? And at the end of the day, like, a foul is a foul, and we're just trying to give both teams the equal opportunity at winning, regardless if that means that their star player has to sit after so many fouls or not. So,
yeah. No, it's a great point of that. You just at the end of the day, you got to call what is a call, regardless of if it's 4, 5, 6, 1. Like it's a foul. It's a foul. The charge is your last charge. When you tried to score to put your team up, guess what? You should have thought to make a pass. Like maybe try a jump stop next time.
It's just the integrity of the game, right? Like again. Both teams are out there competing. If someone's in legal darting position and they get ran through by so and so trying to go through the hoop, you just got to make the right call. And it's tough, and it is tough because we understand both sides of the coin. Like that's his team's star player. You know what I mean? And then on the other side of the coin, that defensive player was in the right position at the right time and took it in the numbers. It should be a charge. So I will say every situation is different. I don't want to sound like a lawyer, but every situation is different. And again, we're just out there trying to get the calls right at the end of the day.
What are your thoughts on replay review? How is that? So you refed FIBA, you refed USport. I don't know how much replay review you have in those. I played Division III, where there is very, very limited replay review, and pretty much whenever a coach calls for a replay review, the entire stands, everyone just boos him. So there's very little replay review at the level that I played at.
Okay.
I know USport is a higher level in a lot of cases. I know FIBA is 100% a higher level. How much replay review do you have in that? And how do you like it, or do you think it makes your job harder?
So I'll start at the USport level. So it has not been implemented at any USport level as yet. I think it's a question of technology and budget funding and just the availability of it. I do see us getting there one day. At the FIBA level for tournament competitions, we do use it. It's very, very structured. So there are very limited situations in which you can use it. Has it made our job harder? No. And I'll get to the NBA side of the point in a second. But the FIBA way I thought was very well put. It's very, very, it's very, very white and black. Like it's clear whether we can go to replay or we can't to review certain things or not. It's made the game easier. It's cleared up ambiguity. And yeah, I'm glad it's there. I hope they don't expand it any further. And this is where I'll jump into the NBA side of things. The NBA has far more replay scenarios than FIBA does. As we can see, as we've seen also like the coaches challenge, right? Like FIBA doesn't have that concept. So on coaches challenges, they'll be reviewing fouls, judgment calls. So that's, to me, you open in Pandora's box there once you're able to contest. It's comparable to like contesting or reviewing balls and strikes in baseball, if you really think about it. So for the NBA guys, I've never refed at the level, but I would think that it may have made the job that much harder, just because again, you're stopping the game to review, a foul or not. You're stopping the game to review in their last 2 minutes. You're almost reviewing every possession in some cases. We've seen some games where it just feels like it's just dragged on. Like we've turned a minute and 30 seconds left in the fourth into a 45 minute episode, right? So yeah, I can't imagine that being easy for the NBA officials. Again, replay has its pros and cons. Again, the goal is to always get the call right. But again, at some point we have to ask at what expense, like what are we sacrificing to get the call right? Have we lost the momentum? Have we lost the, what we had at that point in the game to get a call right? And what call is it that we're trying to get right? Is it possibly just a slight deflection on a pass that went out of bounds? Is it, or is it something like a block charge situation? Again, I think replay has its place for things that are obvious and that things that shouldn't have been missed, like situations where let's say a player has their foot on the line for a 3-point attempt. That's crucial, right? And that's something FIBA does review. We need to know if that's a 2 or a 3. And at the end of the day, we need to know if that's a 2 or a 3. The game should be stopped because, again, it changes the jeopardy for both teams, right? But yeah, it does get very, very slippery when you start reviewing fouls, especially in later game situations.
Yeah, I know there was a college game the other day that I forget who was playing. I'm pretty sure it was an Iowa game that the last minute of the game, the last clock minute took 20 real minutes of time to finish just because of the replay reviews and the timeouts and the commercials that were involved. So the replay review it does have its benefits. Like you said, I do think it has a lot of good things, and I like the way that FIBA does it where they have certain specific things that you can rule replay reviewable or not, but it definitely needs to be improved, I think, in the NCAA and definitely on the NBA level.
Yeah, definitely some tweaks to be had there.
Yeah, I mean, and you mentioned like the slight deflections. Like I remember there was a call where it was Lakers Clippers last year where Patrick Beverley blocked LeBron and it went off his fingernail, and they spent 10 minutes trying to review it. And I honestly felt like offended for the refs. I'm like they can't see that in real time. Like that's not what replay review is there for. That's not the spirit of the rules.
Right.
And like, how are you going to get a replay review to make a call that no human being could make?
Right. Right. Yeah. On that point, I just think that the game basketball it's perfect in its imperfections almost. You know what I mean? There's some things that we just gotta like, you know, that we just kind of take for granted. Like if we kind of just go back to playground basketball, like we just kind of, you know, we make it, you know, let's just get back to that in a sense. Like, okay, it's your ball. Like, you know, it was close. It's 50-50. Okay, your ball type thing, you know. Again, I would like to think that they're going to, you know, look at it. And I know the NBA is super analytical. They'll try and look at, you know, the time of the average replay, and they've cut it down. They have cut the replay times down, but at what cost? You know, at what cost, and what are we, you know, sacrificing to get the truest of the true? You know, the last fingernail deflections. Is it really worth it?
Yeah. So. You mentioned in FIBA that there's very specific rules for what can and can't be replay reviewed. I was wondering if you could take us through that really quickly, just so that the listeners know what they're missing out on when they watch NBA games and have to watch every review.
Yeah, our replays on almost everything, right? So yeah, as I mentioned, so FIBA will review foot on the line for a 2 or 3 in the last 2 minute period. They will review close deflections. Now, again, there's another difference is the referee ultimately has the last say on whether they will go to the review or not. It's with the crew chief will have will make the decision whether or not the review will be granted. Whereas the NBA, the coach can possibly say, "Hey, I want that looked at." Or you know, if there's enough hubbub, yeah, they'll go to a replay review. It's a little different in FIBA. The referee will make that decision. If ever there's a case where you know, the referees didn't see who went out of bounds in that last 2 minutes, yeah, they'll also go to review. Referees will, and this one's tough. This one's really tough. Goaltending is also something that they'll review. Whether goaltending occurred or not in FIBA. And they also have the ability to upgrade or downgrade a foul. So to unsporting or not, or disqualifying or not. So those are different things that they'll review. FIBA will not be reviewing block charge situations.
That's a big one. That's a big one that I'm like, that's just...
It's big.
I just think that it's wrong to look at players trying to stop on a dime and trying to review that in slow motion.
Right. Right. And, you know, this kind of does get technical, but a rule difference is here between the NBA and FIBA, that restricted area, the restricted area underneath the basket. So I know a lot of times they will review in the NBA to see if the player is on the line, because if the defensive player is on the line, and contact occurs, that player is automatically at fault defensively, so defensive foul should be charged. Whereas in FIBA, there's a very similar defensive circle in the basket. However, the line does not. It's officiated differently in that a defensive player cannot be, if in legal guarding position, cannot be at fault for a foul. So again, it's different in the way it's looked at, and so people might not see the need necessarily to go to a replay on something like that. Just a small technicality, and again, the way the rules are made, ultimately officiated in both FIBA and the NBA.
Nice.
And a lot of us watch the NBA every night. We see stars like Luka Doncic or Draymond Green. Sometimes the entire Laker roster, or all 5 or 15, complaining to referees nonstop.
You stole my joke. I wrote that.
I know there's a recency bias, and that we think maybe it wasn't always like this. Players didn't used to talk to refs as much. We wanted to know your personal perspective. Do you think players are complaining to refs more now than they used to because of things like reviews and challenges, or has it always just been guys yelling, but now we just get to see it more often?
I think I will. We are seeing it more often. Again, the cameras are kind of they're always on certain individuals. Whereas the way the game is filmed has changed too. Like I always think back to, I might be dating myself a bit, but the Jordan days, or the Malone days, Gary Payton even. That was a guy who was notoriously a talker, and there's always been a lot of complaining at the professional level, but I just think the way the way the game is filmed now, we are seeing more of it. The cameras are panning into the coach referee interactions a lot more often, which is something that wasn't necessarily done. Doesn't mean that there wasn't a lot of chirping before. I knew that back in the day, Jerry Sloan at Utah was notoriously one of the most verbally malicious coaches out there. You know what I mean? But again, it's nothing the general public really didn't see, just because again, those interactions weren't really filmed as much as now. We're seeing a lot more of that. So it's interesting. There may be a little bit more drawing now. The legal. If it gets to a certain point, the league will probably want to address it, right? I don't think it's at a point where it's hurting the game, but it definitely needs to be monitored for sure.
Because at a certain degree, my dad's a pretty old school guy about his sports and his basketball especially, and he's one of those fans who's more a fan of, look, you want to talk back to the referee, you're going to get a technical right away. There's just no reason to talk to him. Let him do his job, you do yours, So is that something you think the NBA could ever think about, going back to just hard line? You don't need to have a discussion, let this guy make the call, or is it always going to be a little bit more just hey, buddy, you sure that was a foul over there? Or maybe not for me.
No. One thing that is interesting is when the NBA players do play for Team USA in international competition, because that's when they are officiated by FIBA referees who are more along the lines of the game is to be played and not discussed. And so they'll cut conversations. We're just not going to be talking every play. So the NBA players can adjust. They have the ability to go out there and just play. It's basically, as it was what I mentioned before, it's what you permit, you promote. Right now, the NBA is permitting these guys to talk, whether it's part of the entertainment factor, I don't know what they want, but they're letting them talk. Whereas in the FIBA side of things, it's just not going to happen like that. Those things will be addressed. Technical fouls will be given, whether you're on Team USA, whether you're on Team,
Lithuania.
Lithuania, you go past that line in FIBA, you're going to get a technical foul. And that's one thing, I appreciate in FIBA, right? They're just trying to have the purest version of the game. And they don't take into consideration star players. And on all that. A foul is a foul. A technical foul is a technical foul. And like their motto says, FIBA, we are basketball, and they're gonna hold the line at that. So
that's nice. I'm honestly a big fan of that. If I was a referee, I think I would just give people texts you just don't need to yell. Like, if you want to talk to me, you can maybe come over here and have a conversation after the game, but there's no need to scream. It's not what we're here to do.
There's, we can talk.
Yeah,
I like to talk.
happy ref I'll ever play with, or you would give 0, and I know there's no in between with you, and it would vary by day until you figure out your groove. I know you.
Yeah. It would be a learning curve for sure.
For sure.
One thing I'm curious about is I talk a lot about on our podcast. I talk a lot about the uprise in flopping and the difference between flopping and embellishing. And how I absolutely despise flopping, but I don't have an issue with embellishing. I'm interested what your perspective is on that as a ref. Do you see a difference between flopping and embellishing? And if so, like, what are your thoughts? Like, do they both suck? Do they suck equally? Is one worse? Is one better?
Yeah. No. As again, being a former player, you can't fault. Especially again, I was a bigger guy playing, right? So if I take contact in the chest and I'm in good guarding position, I might not go down as easily as someone else who's smaller in stature who takes the same contact. So again, you got to think of it like, am I better off embellishing a little bit, right? Like, just put a little bit on it to maybe try and get the same call that someone smaller would get. And we understand that. We understand those concepts, right? So I can say from the FIBA perspective, they have come down on flopping hard. They've come down pretty hard on flopping. Typically, I'll kind of throw the European thing out there, but yeah, the European gameplay back a couple of years ago was heavy on flopping. It was a lot of players going to the floor, a lot of head snapping back, to try and get calls. FIBA did come out with a flop warning now, an official flop warning. They're trying to cut that out of the game. You'll get one warning for flopping, and a second offense for flopping is going to be a straight technical foul. So they're trying to take it out of the game. And there is a difference between, flopping and again, and then the difference between flopping and then just, I guess, taking the contact and, for what it's worth, taking the contact for what it's worth. Like, we understand, like, if the player with the ball is coming through you and drives their shoulder into your chest, we understand that you're going to absorb that contact, right? And so that's not going to be considered a flop. We're just trying to take the things out of the game where players are ending up on the floor. They're now skidding across the floor, making the floor wet for other players unnecessarily, possibly skidding into other players, right, on the floor. There's just no need for that, right? And again, there's been a lot of clips where these are brush contacts or, where you thought you were going to take a charge, but the player bypasses you and then you still fall, right? Again, all that stuff is we're just trying to take it out because it's just not necessary. And again, the contacts there, we'll make the calls. But we are trying to take the flopping out of the game. I think FIBA has done a pretty good job of taking it out overall. On the NBA side of things, again, like, there is a lot of flopping. There is a lot of embellishing. They're now dinging guys for in the pocket, right? Trying to take the value of the game. The NBA level's hard again because the speed of the game, the athleticism of the players. Is it really a flop? Is it really not a flop? What's good is that the NBA is taking the egregious flops, like the blatant, the nasty, the ugly flop, and they're penalizing them, right, with fines and such. So at least that's being done. Will flopping ever be out of the game of basketball? No, there's no chance. It's just something that we're just trying to mitigate. And it's great to see that not only are the referees doing their part on the floor, but the leagues like the NBA, FIBA, on an administrative level by putting certain rules and fines in, are trying to mitigate flopping as well. Because again, we want the game played at its purest, and flopping, we always compare it to soccer, right? We just don't want to get there. No offense to any soccer fans, but we just don't want to get
any soccer fans on. Don't worry.
Okay.
I have no plans
Just
to
me.
cover MLS.
Yeah.
You addressed a lot of the flopping on the defensive end, embellishment. I wanted to talk a little bit on the offensive end too. A lot of this advent in the NBA of drawing fouls, being able to get to the line, the James Harden sweep throughs and the step backs, jumping forward on 3-point shots. Do you think any of that has its place on the offensive end, or should guys just be trying to get to the bucket, and if they get fouled, you'll make the call? Like, what is that, the sort of shot, like fouls on jump shots, fouls attacking the rim when guys are just clearly jumping in the air for contact and then trying to make layups after? What does that look like to you as a referee when you watch guys do that?
We referee the principle for us is we're refereeing the cylinders, right? Every player's got their own cylinder, and I'm just speaking on the FIBA side of things, but if the player with the ball goes into someone else's cylinder and this person's in legal guarding position hasn't left theirs, there's no reason why we should be calling fouls on that. Same concept, interestingly, with the 3-point attempt. So if I go up for a 3-point shot and you're jumping by to try and block it and maybe trying to pass me, but in doing so you stick out your leg, right? Just to get that contact. Well, FIBA's cracked down on that now. That will now be ruled an offensive foul. So again, it comes down to your cylinder. You've got your cylinder straight up and straight down. If you leave the ground from somewhere, you're still legally entitled to where you left the ground from. Again, with block charges, it gets a little more complicated, but there's no reason why if someone jumps into me, I should be penalized. And that's where it gets a little. That's where it differentiates from the NBA. And again, we talked about their lower defensive box, right? Because that in itself is a different concept. Any defensive player in that defensive box underneath the basket, whether you're in your cylinder or not, if you make contact, and again, they'll say that sometimes players are coming out of their cylinder. You're gonna be responsible for a foul. So the NBA side of things differentiates from FIBA.
For sure.
But general consensus, offensive players just focus on going, just focus on making the shot. If the defense is going towards you, the call will be made. If the defensive player was late getting there for the block, it should be a block type thing.
We've talked a lot about different plays, different situations. I wanted to focus a little bit more on you and becoming a referee. Just what is that training process like? Not only just at the beginning to do local games, but as you progress through to eventually your class. I know it's like BA, if classes into the international. Like, what is that? What are those courses like, and how much learning does it actually take before you can get your certifications?
There's no cut and dry. There's no cut and dry path. There are no certain courses. Again, we do have levels of refereeing. They'll vary province to province here in Canada. You just kind of you get assessed, you get evaluated, you get seen by different supervisors, provide written evaluations. Video reviews, and again, once you're meeting those criteria, you're able to progress up the ladder as you see fit. Like balls and strikes are part of it. Also, again, just being in shape to run and keep up with the pace of the game is part of it as well. And then when you do get to that, those higher levels, the USport level. Do get the opportunity to referee at the FIBA levels. Like, again, once you get there type thing, it's like, oh, you're set and you can just coast. I got to say, like, from the FIBA perspective, like, they've been on top of us despite this last year of COVID. They have been sending a lot of written material preparing us. We have an annual test that we have to write, rules test. They've been preparing us for that. We have to run a beep test annually and attain a beep test level, which I did yesterday. And let me say, it is not the easiest thing, especially when you're starting to creep up in age like that. So again, they want you to not only they push you to get to that to as high as you can, but once you're there too, they expect you to maintain it and to be putting in the work to maintain it. So again, watching a lot of clips, discussions with your peers. Yeah, it's wherever you're at, for referees, wherever you're at, it's just a matter of not getting complacent and just remembering that it's competitive in the sense, if you're not keeping up to where you should be, there's someone that wants your spot or wants to take your place. So we're always encouraging people to just keep it up. The work on the floor, rules wise, the rules are always changing. You got to stay on top of those.
Yeah.
The supports are there in place. So.
All right, so we got one last question. It's a shout out to my friend Charlie Green from By the Green Media. He asks a very similar question in every one of his episodes where he's interviewing professional athletes. So I hope he's okay with me borrowing. I really should have texted him. I did not. Sorry, Charlie. Thank you. What are 3 things that you would like to take out or add to the game of basketball? And I think you're going to give an interesting perspective as a referee in that you're not going to be like, get rid of this because it makes my game better. So I want to know what are 3 things that you think would make the game of basketball either more exciting or easier to ref or anything that you think would make the game of basketball just better.
I would say first, from an NBA perspective, the restricted area, I think, in the NBA. So again, we're talking about that little half moon underneath the basket. I think that needs to be reviewed for a couple of reasons. I understand what it's there for. It's basically trying to remove any defensive player from standing underneath the basket, because technically if you're underneath the basket, you're no longer defending it, right? But at the same time, their rules are so strict in that any player who's in that defensive box and makes any sort of contact with an offensive player, whether it be to an advantage or disadvantage, there's going to be a foul called. And in my opinion, I just think there are some marginal contacts that we're seeing at the NBA level. Again, these guys are so talented. They're so strong. Let's just see a little bit more play through around the hoop, like a little brush, doesn't mean we have to stop the game now and go and shoot 2 free throws. For me, it's like, and that's one thing I really appreciate with FIBA. It's like, we use that advantage, disadvantage principle a lot more often in our games. And it just helps with the flow so much more. I know I haven't talked on it much, but from the NCAA side of it as well, again, a lot of marginal contacts. And again, I'm not talking about marginal hand checks, on the perimeter where, a hand may be getting, I might be directing a player now because I've got my hand on their hip. Those are important to, we want to protect dribblers, absolutely. But I'm talking more about around the hoop. Let's be able to play a little bit more. I would love to be able to see that NCAA side of things and definitely the NBA side of things. So yeah, definitely that's one thing I would change. One other thing I would change, the 3-point line. We're literally seeing entire roster, like, when you get 5 players on each side, every single one of those players can shoot a 3-pointer. Like, there's no more mystique in it. There's no more, like, okay, it's 3 points. What's that, sir?
What's the fix?
Like, I think we need to back that up. We need to back the 3-point lineup. Like, FIBA's, I think, around 22 and a half feet. The NBA is 23 and a half. Again, we just saw a couple of days ago in the NBA All-Star game, the 3-point contest, I think it was a 30-foot shot, right? Like players are now, that's like Damian Lillard, Steph Curry. Those are like in-game shots now, right? I'm not saying let's just throw it back to 30 right away, but I think that 3-point line needs to come back a bit, right?
I don't like that rule because I just added a 3-point shot to my game. Don't make it any harder for me. We're nixing that. I'm kidding. Well, I like that. That's been definitely a big topic of conversation a lot that I've heard.
Yeah. I mean, the players are just so talented, and I just think it's not to I think it's just because it's become a norm. Let's kind of just make it more of a feat, right? The game is changed completely. Like if we even look at shot charts during an NBA game now, the number of perimeter shots, like number of 3-point shots in the game, not that there's anything wrong with it, right? But we're losing that. The game is literally played either on the 3-point arc or literally within 3 feet of the basket, and that whole mid-range, between that area is a non-factor, right? So again, I think it would be interesting, maybe extending the 3-point line, and as a result of that, I think the court dimension also would have to be extended, because again, when you get to the corner 3-point attempts, there's not a lot of room, especially from the NBA side of things. I think there's about 17 inches between the 3-point line and the sideline. You just need more space, right? So
some people's feet are bigger than that.
Most NBA players got bigger shoes than that.
You know what I mean? Like, some people to take that shot would have to be standing out of bounds. So court dimensions, if they were to extend that just a bit, and I think they'd have to play with it and see what the ideal dimensions would have to be, but would definitely be interesting. Would change the game, would change the spacing of the game too, right? Definitely be something to look at there. And I don't know, this one's on my mind just for what it's worth. If I could change anything, NBA All-Star Skills Challenge. I'm sorry, that's gotta go.
I made money in that. I like that one. 2 suggestions that I would like. I'm kidding. Well, you don't like watching guys not warm up and then like the tallest guy on the floor wins the skill challenge? Who doesn't love that?
Well, yeah, I mean, maybe it's something for the big guys. Maybe it's out there for the big guys. No, who knows?
Too tall to look impressive while dunking, not good enough at shooting to shoot threes. Let's put them in a skills challenge.
Let's throw them in the skills challenge.
That's really funny. All right,
but those are some great rules.
Chaz, you got anything?
No, I was just going to say I like that idea a lot. I hadn't really thought much about extending the NBA floor and just basketball courts in general. I do, as a player who's always been more predicated on just his athleticism and less his skill, I think that would let a lot more players take advantage of getting the speed up the floor, and maybe we wouldn't be able to see Giannis take 2 dribbles and dunk from his own baseline. It would change the aspect of the game a little bit. But it's been great. I got nothing else for you, Nate. It's been a pleasure to have you on. Lovely to see you again.
And
thanks for having me.
You want to say before we close it down?
Yeah.
If I got anything, listen, anyone out there listening to this and they want to try their hand at officiating, whether it be for whatever motivation, whether it's to say, I can ref better than Nate or whatever, like, please, just come give it a try, man. Please. The game we need referees out there. It's a different side of the coin. Like if you've been on the playing side, the coaching side, just try the refereeing side. It'll just give you that different perspective. And a learning point too, and we've seen a lot of people, a lot of our referees are, again, past players who never thought they would ever be basketball referees, and now are in love with it. And it's something you can do for years and years to come. Again, it keeps you fit. There's a little change in the pocket as well. And the camaraderie is something that a lot of people aren't aware of. I'm telling you, like, there are some really great people in refereeing that not only are people I work with on the floor, but they've become great friends, brothers, So again, if you're in doubt or you got that little itch, give it a shot. Just hit up your local association, pick up a whistle, and give it a try.
We love that. We do need more good refs.
Mm-hmm.
Nate, it has been an absolute pleasure. Thank you so much for getting on. I hope to see you reffing. I hope to see you reffing one of my games at some point in the near future.
I can't wait to see you play, man. It's been a while, so.
It's been a minute. Anyway, this has been Ball Talk.
It's ball talk. It's ball talk, baby. 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 Baby, baby, baby.